When humanity bartered its soul for forbidden secrets, cosmic pride, and the first sins of war, the Creator unleashed a fierce global deluge to wash it all away. Old world out, new world in. Witness the ultimate cleansing. In those primeval days, when the human race began to increase upon the face of the earth, many beautiful daughters were born unto the men. The Spirit of the Creator moved upon the quiet waters, while the early generations of humanity lived in a world untouched by the coming shadow. High within the celestial realms, the 200 watchers looked down from their holy stations to witness the flourishing beauty of the mortal human women. The angel Semyaza stood as the leader of these heavenly beings, whose hearts grew heavy with a forbidden desire for the fair daughters of humanity. A solemn and terrible pact was struck among the shining host to leave their proper dwelling place and descend upon the high peaks of earth. The atmosphere rippled like silver as the celestial travelers pierced the firmament, leaving behind the eternal light of the throne to embrace the material world. Upon the ancient summit of the holy mountain, the shimmering feet of the divine rebels touched the cold stones, marking the start of a transformation. The inhabitants of the valleys watched with a mixture of profound awe and growing dread as the sky burned with the arrival of these gods. These guardians of the heavenly order abandoned their sacred duties to mingle their immortal essence with the flesh of the mortal women they had chosen. The delicate balance of creation shifted violently as the sons of God took wives for themselves and began to walk among the terrified human tribes. The era of pristine silence vanished forever, while the seeds of a new and monstrous lineage were planted deep within the fabric of the earth. Hidden mysteries of the cosmos were carried in the hands of the fallen ones, ready to be revealed to the minds of the unsuspecting men. The world remained a garden of simplicity, where the descendants of Seth and Cain pursued their labors under the heat of the golden ancient sun. Men tilled the soil with primitive tools, while the shepherds watched over their flocks in the vast pastures that stretched toward the edge of Eden. A quiet harmony defined the interactions of the early families, who gathered in reverence to offer the first fruits of their weary and humble hands. The celestial eyes of the watchers burned with an increasing intensity as they observed the grace and the allure of the growing number of daughters. Semyaza gathered his companions and whispered of the pleasures found in the mortal realm, urging them to bind themselves to a heavy and inescapable oath. They feared the judgment of the High King, while the pull of the material world proved stronger than the fading echoes of their celestial divine duty. The boundary between the spiritual and the physical became blurred after the 200 angels decided to cross the threshold into the realm of human experience. Bright flashes of light illuminated the dark peaks of the mountain range as the celestial army landed upon the earth with a terrifying and silent grace. The pristine state of affairs crumbled into the dust of the ground when the heavenly strangers appeared before the gates of the early and growing cities. Each of the fallen ones selected a mate from among the mortal tribes, seeking to unite the power of heaven with the fragility of the human soul. The first signs of structural decay were felt in the spirit of the land, while the Creator looked down with a heart that began to grieve. Azazel and the other leaders brought with them the ancient secrets of the stars and the arts of war, to change the hearts of the mortals. The shimmering descent of the 200 marked the final end of divine peace, and the birth of a conflict that would drown the entire world. The fallen guardians gathered the trembling sons of men beneath the obsidian shadows of the mountain to unveil the jagged secrets of iron and bronze. Azazel stretched forth his shimmering hands to demonstrate the forging of sharp blades that could pierce the heavy shields of any mortal human enemy. These celestial rebels taught the art of making weapons and the practice of sorcery to turn the once quiet valleys into vast, bloody fields. The peaceful descendants of Seth watched with growing terror as the wicked line of Cain embraced the heavy hammers to craft the early killing tools. Every stroke of the hammer upon the anvil echoed through the heavens, while the divine order of the world began to fracture and slowly decay. Semyaza whispered the ancient mysteries of the stars to the curious minds of mortals, who sought to master the hidden movements of the celestial luminaries. The knowledge area passed down by the fallen angels caused great chaos upon the earth, as men began to manipulate the heavens through dark astrology. Humanity abandoned the sacred rhythms of the Creator to follow the irregular cycles of the moon, which led the soul into deep spiritual confusion. The shimmering wives of the Watchers adorned their faces with forbidden cosmetics, while their hearts grew heavy with the weight of celestial divine pride. Lamech boasted of his violent deeds and the strength of his iron weapons to his many virtues, marking the rapid spread of human arrogance. Violence filled the land as the tribes used their new technology to wage war against their neighbors and seize the fertile ancient golden pastures. The delicate threads of the covenant between heaven and earth began to unravel, while the shadows of the rebellious angels stretched across the land. Mothers wept for sons, who were now trained to kill with the sharp efficiency of the metal blades brought from the high celestial spirit realms. The early signs of structural decay appeared in every city, where the forbidden tech of the Nephilim transformed the simple human heart into stone. Divine peace retreated from the world as the 200 Watchers continued to pour their forbidden wisdom into the thirsty minds of the mortal men. Tubal-Cain forged every kind of tool from bronze and iron, while the fallen ones watched the sparks fly with a cold and calculating divine satisfaction. The arts of war became the primary focus of the mortal kings, who abandoned the humble labor of the soil to seek earthly military power. Men learned to read the signs of the heavens, to predict the fall of kingdoms and the rise of empires, through the lenses of astrology. These forbidden visions led to the growth of unchecked human power, which began to crush the weak and the vulnerable beneath the heavy iron wheels. The purity of the human bloodline was slowly corrupted as the immortal essence of the Watchers mingled with the fragile flesh of the mortal women. Every inclination of the thoughts of the human heart became only evil all the time, as the darkness of the celestial rebellion consumed humanity. The world was once a place of simple worship, until the altars were stained with the blood of innocent lives lost in the conflict. Jubal played the harp and the flute to drown out the cries of the dying, while the beautiful daughters of men danced in the shadows. The celestial technology of warfare and sorcery spread like a plague through the cities, marking the early signs of a deep spiritual and structural decay. Humanity felt the first sharp stings of a world without God, while the rebellious angels reigned as kings over the terrified and the wicked tribes. The forbidden union between the celestial Watchers and the daughters of men brought forth a race of titans, whose shadows stretched across the bleeding ancient land. These Nephilim grew into colossal giants, whose massive frames towered over the crumbling cities of the mortal human tribes, while their hearts burned with insatiable hunger. The earth groaned beneath the weight of these unnatural bastards as they devoured the labor of men and seized the very substance of the fertile soil. Mortal kingdoms vanished in the wake of their thunderous footsteps, leaving behind only the cold ashes of a world once defined by simple divine and quiet peace. Terror gripped the human soul when the giants turned their violent eyes toward the flesh of humanity to satisfy their increasingly dark and perverse celestial desires. Violence became the only law recognized in the shadowed valleys, where the blood of the innocent flowed like a dark river into the thirsty, parched ground. The corruption of the Watchers reached its terrifying zenith as the Nephilim warriors trampled the sacred boundaries of creation with their massive and heavy iron boots. Humanity found no refuge from the predatory reach of these men of renown, who treated the lives of mortals as mere playthings for their dark amusement. Desolation settled upon the face of the deep, while the cries of the suffering rose toward a heaven that seemed locked in a silent and remote eternal cold. The Nephilim established themselves as tyrannical gods, demanding worship and sacrifice from the trembling remnants of the line of Seth and the wicked line. Every inclination of the human heart became a jagged shard of malice, as the influence of the giants poisoned the wellsprings of the human spirit. Mothers hid their children in the dark recesses of the earth to escape the gaze of the Titans, who roamed the land searching for fresh prey. The giants eventually turned their blades against one another in a frantic struggle for dominance, which left the fields littered with the broken celestial giant bones. Chaos reigned supreme within the heart of every nation, as the structural decay of the old world reached its final and most absolute breaking point. The substance of the land was consumed by the endless greed of the Nephilim, who left behind a desert where there was once a lush garden. Desperate prayers for deliverance were whispered in the shadows of the high mountains, while the sun looked down upon a world stained with deep and ancient blood. The beauty of creation was marred by the grotesque forms of these hybrid monsters, whose existence was a direct defiance of the original divine holy word. Night offered no comfort to the weary mortals, while the laughter of the fallen ones echoed through the darkness like the sound of many pieces of shattering glass. The Nephilim kings built massive monuments to their own pride, using the forced labor of a humanity that had long since forgotten the taste of freedom. Every holy altar was thrown down and replaced with a throne of stone, where the giants sat in judgment over the fragile and broken human race. The atmosphere of the world grew thick with the stench of death, as the cycle of violence accelerated toward a final and inevitable global cataclysm. Humanity felt the full weight of the shadow of the giants, while the foundations of the earth began to crack under the strain of their wickedness. No corner of the world remained hidden from the reach of the Nephilim, who claimed the oceans and the mountains as their own private and violent kingdom. The era of the Titans was a time of absolute darkness, where the light of the Creator seemed to have vanished from the face of the land. Spirits of the slain cried out from the ground for justice, while the Nephilim continued their march toward the total destruction of the entire human biological race. The agonizing cries of the broken human race ascended through the heavy clouds to reach the golden and eternal throne of the High Creator. Holy light flared within the celestial courts as the four mighty archangels stood ready to execute the righteous and terrible commands of the king. Michael unsheathed his blade of living fire, while Gabriel prepared the trumpet of judgment to signal the end of the violent era of Titans. Raphael gathered the cooling mists of heaven to heal the parched earth, while Uriel looked upon the dark secrets hidden within the human biological soul. The celestial warriors descended like falling stars to confront the 200 rebellious guardians who had abandoned their sacred and original heavenly dwelling place. Silver chains of eternal substance were forged in the heat of divine justice to bind the hands of Semyaza and the wicked teacher Azazel. The earth trembled under the weight of the coming wrath as the archangels cast the fallen ones into the deepest and darkest hollow abyss. Imprisoned beneath the jagged rocks of the world, the rebellious spirits wailed in despair, while the shadows of their monstrous children covered the parched land. Every inclination of the human heart remained focused on evil, while the Nephilim continued to devour the remaining substance of the once pristine world. Violence filled the valleys and blood stained the altars of the false gods, who demanded the constant sacrifice of the innocent and weary mortals. The Creator looked upon the ruin of his handiwork with a heart that grieved for the beauty lost to the forbidden celestial and dark technology. A final decree was whispered through the halls of the firmament, marking the exact number of days before the fountains of the deep would burst. Amidst the total decay of the human spirit, one man named Noah walked in perfect righteousness and found grace before the eyes of God. The divine voice commanded the faithful patriarch to build a massive ark of cypress wood to preserve the seed of life from the coming flood. Noah labored under the mockery of the wicked tribes as he applied the dark pitch to the inner and outer walls of the vessel. The dimensions of the great boat mirrored the sacred order of the universe, designed to withstand the violent and churning waters of the global deluge. 7 pairs of every clean animal and the various birds of the air gathered near the threshold of the ark as the countdown began. The atmosphere turned heavy with the scent of ozone, and the sky darkened with the gathering clouds of a storm that would drown history. Humanity ignored the signs of the approaching reckoning as they continued their wars and practiced the forbidden arts taught by the bound fallen angels. The door of the ark remained open for one final week of grace, while the Spirit of God hovered over the face of the waters. Archangels stood at the 4 corners of the world, holding back the winds of destruction until the righteous family was safely secured within the wood. The sun vanished behind a veil of charcoal clouds as the first drops of rain fell upon the parched and thirsty skin of the earth. Divine justice sharpened its blade for the ultimate turning point, while the foundations of the material world prepared to shatter under the heavy waves. The era of the giants reached its final sunset as the hand of the Creator reached out to seal the door of the floating wooden sanctuary. A profound silence settled over the valleys before the arrival of the great and purifying flood that would sweep away the memories of sin. The archangels watched from the high peaks as the celestial reckoning began to cleanse the soil of the ancient and corrupt human biological race. The archangels Michael and Gabriel descended with a terrifying brilliance to seize the leaders of the rebellion, who had defiled the holy ancient mountains of earth. Raphael and Uriel joined the celestial hunt to capture the wicked Azazel, while the heavens glowed with the fires of divine justice and inevitable heavenly wrath. These celestial warriors cast the 200 rebellious watchers into the lowest parts of the dark abyss, to remain bound in chains of eternal iron. Dark clouds gathered like an army of shadows over the lands of the giants, as the Spirit of the Creator prepared the great and purifying flood. Noah moved with silent and steady obedience to enter the massive wooden ark, before the hand of God sealed the heavy door against the world. The fountains of the great deep burst forth with a thunderous roar that shattered the foundations of the mountains and filled the valleys with water. Windows of the high heavens opened wide to release a relentless and heavy rain that fell upon the towers of the proud and mighty giants. The Nephilim giants roared in desperate and terrible defiance as the rising waves consumed their cities and drowned the monuments of their dark celestial ancient pride. Violent currents swept away the advanced technology of the fallen ones, while the cries of the wicked were silenced beneath the depth of the churning sea. The entire surface of the earth vanished beneath the mastery of the surging flood, which covered even the highest peaks of the primeval and ancient mountains. Every living thing that breathed the breath of life upon the dry ground perished in the cold and dark waters of the divine global deluge. The giants who once ruled as gods found no refuge in their strength, as the heavy hand of justice reached down to cleanse the bleeding world. Silence settled over the vast and empty ocean, while the ark floated safely above the ruins of a civilization built upon forbidden and celestial dark secrets. The chains of the watchers tightened in the dark hollows of the earth, as the Spirit of God held sway over the chaotic and deep waters. 40 days and 40 nights of heavy and relentless rain transformed the garden of the world into a tomb for the mighty and the wicked. The structures of the old world crumbled into pieces of gray stone, while the legacy of the fallen ones was buried deep within the mud. Archangels stood as silent witnesses to the destruction of the hybrid race, while the foundations of the deep continued to pour forth their liquid wrath. Noah and his family waited within the safety of the cypress wood, while the world was reborn through the terrifying and holy power of the deluge. The light of the ancient sun vanished from view, as the atmosphere turned into a churning veil of water and shadows of the dying titans. Every trace of the forbidden tech was washed away by the currents, as the righteous judgment of the Creator reached its final and absolute peak. The battle for the soul of creation was won by the heavens, while the earth lay silent and still beneath the weight of the sea. Divine justice executed the final strike against the rebellion, while the waters rose 15 cubits higher than the summit of the very last mountain range. The mighty ones of old were forgotten in the storm, as the Spirit of God hovered over the face of the waters to begin creation. The heavy wooden door of the massive cypress ark creaked open, to reveal a world washed clean by the terrifying and cold divine waters. Noah stepped out upon the muddy slopes of Mount Ararat, while the peaks of the primeval and ancient mountains rose like islands from the sea. A profound and heavy silence settled over the valleys, once filled with the thunderous and violent footsteps of the monstrous and wicked Nephilim giants. Mothers held their infants close, while the sounds of the receding waters provided a rhythmic and soothing melody for the exhausted and fragile family group. The atmosphere felt light and pure beneath the warmth of the golden sun, which had returned to illuminate the fresh and vibrant green land. The 8 survivors gathered around the altar to offer the first fruits of their weary hands in deep and humble spiritual worship. Smoke from the burnt offerings ascended toward the high celestial throne, where the Spirit of the Creator looked down with a heart of mercy. The pleasing aroma of the sacrifice reached the heavens, while the Lord whispered a sacred promise to never again destroy the earth with water. A shimmering bow of 7 distinct colors appeared within the charcoal clouds, as a lasting and eternal sign of the divine holy covenant. The divine blessing rested upon the heads of the family, who looked toward a future defined by the mercy and the goodness of God. Humanity received the mandate to be fruitful and multiply upon the soil, which had been purged of the forbidden and dark celestial technology. Peace flowed through the hearts of the 3 sons, who prepared to build a new civilization beneath the canopy of the arching blue sky. Shem and Ham and Japheth walked into the fertile valleys to begin the arduous work of tilling the ground and planting the young green vines. Different nations began to emerge from the descendants of these men, who carried the memory of the flood within their deep and weary souls. Shepherds led their flocks into the pristine pastures, which had been prepared by the rich and nutrient silt left behind by the global deluge. The land produced its strength once more for the human race, while the ruins of the Titan cities remained buried beneath the stone. Hidden echoes of the rebellion of the Watchers lingered in the shadows of the high mountains, where the bones of giants rested in silence. The blood of the Titans stained the deep layers of the earth, as a warning of the consequences found in the pursuit of power. Noah planted a lush vineyard upon the hillside, and drank from the wine until he lay uncovered and vulnerable within his own private tent. The sin of Ham revealed that the roots of human corruption still lived within the heart of the race, despite the great cleansing. Ancient secrets of the stars and the arts of war were passed down as whispers to the generations, who sought their own earthly glory. Darkness moved across the plain of Shinar, where men eventually gathered to build a tower that would reach into the high celestial realms. The pride of humanity threatened to shatter the new peace, while the Creator watched the unfolding history of the broken and redeemed human biological race. The rainbow remains in the clouds as a testament to the faithfulness of God, who preserves the world beneath the light of the sun. Generations rise and fall, while the promise of the seed of the woman continues to shine as a beacon for the weary human soul. The bloodline of the righteous stretches toward the coming of the Messiah, who will one day crush the head of the ancient serpent. History moves toward a final horizon of justice, where the old structures will be replaced by a new heaven and a new earth. The silent world waits for the return of the king, while the memories of the forbidden tech fade into the ancient and sunken stones. The lingering echoes of the judgment continue to resonate through the centuries, as a reminder that the heavens always rule over the earthly kingdoms.